Welcome to Boring News from Not Boring, where we bring you the news as Polymarket sees it. I'm your host, Packy McCormick's voice, and my job is to put my mouth where your money is. Today is January 3rd. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the U.S. House, faces a precarious election on January 3rd, 2025, amid internal Republican dissent and narrow majority. Polymarket shows around 53% chance he wins on the first ballot, with around $6,500 in trading volume, but also a 15% chance of needing 5 or more ballots. Meanwhile, the potential approval of a spot Ripple exchange-traded fund by the SEC is generating optimism, with Polymarket odds at around 70% for approval, reflecting a low trading volume of around $2,500 since it's a newly opened market. In geopolitical news, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's possible visit to Syria is under scrutiny, with Polymarket activity showing a volume of around $30,000 and odds of around 27% for yes and 73% for no. Before moving on, let's see how some of the stories we have discussed this week have developed. The odds of Mike Johnson being ousted as House Speaker have decreased significantly to just 11% from 34% after receiving President-elect Trump's endorsement and maintaining strong Republican support, despite some opposition from Representatives Massey and Spartz. And the odds of an East Coast port strike have increased from 39% to 51% after Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd announced strike-related surcharges and contingency plans, while negotiations remain stalled over automation issues despite scheduled talks resuming January 7th, with industry experts like Thomas Fellows and Lars Jensen now indicating a high likelihood of another strike. Now let's dive into today's stories in detail. Mike Johnson, the current Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, is battling to keep his position in the upcoming vote scheduled for January 3rd, 2025. This challenge arises from the narrow Republican majority and internal party dissent. With support from only 219 Republican seats, Johnson is in a precarious position, especially since several party members, such as Thomas Massey and Chip Roy, have openly opposed him. While President-elect Trump has endorsed him, this might not be enough to secure all necessary votes. Historically, the Speaker election has faced contention. Kevin McCarthy's 2023 election is a prime example, requiring 15 voting rounds due to party divisions. Johnson's leadership is under scrutiny for past compromises with Democrats, further fueling the current discontent. On Polymarket, with a trading volume of around $6,500, the odds are indicating around 53% chance Johnson wins on the first ballot, but suggest around 15% likelihood of needing 5 or more ballots, pointing to skepticism about a swift conclusion. Views on X are mixed, with some echoing the opposition's calls, suggesting the election might extend beyond January 6th. In traditional media, concerns loom over whether Trump's backing will sway critical votes amidst evident divisions. If Johnson cannot secure the needed support, this could delay key legislative actions, including Trump's election certification. Johnson may need to negotiate to appease dissenters, but this could weaken his leadership. We'll keep an eye on this developing story. But for now, let's move on to the next story. The story centers on the potential approval of a spot Ripple exchange-traded fund by the SEC before the end of 2025. This development is amidst regulatory shifts in the crypto landscape, following anticipated political changes, including Donald Trump's leadership and the resignation of SEC Chair Gary Gensler. The legal battle between Ripple Labs and the SEC has raised questions about whether XRP is a security. This lawsuit's outcome, anticipated soon, could bring regulatory clarity. The SEC has a deadline to appeal by January 15th. A favorable resolution could open doors for institutional investment, setting a precedent similar to the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs approved last year. Recent news points to optimism surrounding the approval of an XRP ETF. Trading activity has surged, driven by speculation that upcoming political changes where pro-crypto politicians might lead to more favorable regulations. Polymarket reflects this sentiment with odds at about 70% for approval in this newly opened market. This shift is mirrored in XRP's price, which jumped around 10% early this year. Posts on X and traditional media echo a mix of optimism and caution. Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, shares positive statements. Yet, the outcome depends on resolving the lawsuit and regulatory hurdles. Approval could increase XRP's market value and offer new institutional avenues. The lawsuit's resolution and potential ETF approval mark a new cryptocurrencies era, affecting Ripple's future significantly. Let's move on to our last story. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is considering a diplomatic visit to Syria by January 31st. This important geopolitical development is tracked on Polymarket and comes amid Turkey's long involvement in Syria. Erdogan has pledged support for Syria's transition after Bashar al-Assad's ousting, with high-level officials engaging in talks with Syrian leaders. The aim is to boost ties and regional stability, focusing on Kurdish groups and refugee issues. Turkey and Syria's history is marked by military interventions and alliances, evolving since the Syrian civil war's start in 2011. Turkey traditionally supported opposition forces against Assad, hosted millions of refugees, and conducted operations targeting Kurdish groups. Erdogan sees a chance to engage with Syria's new leadership for influence in stability and security, reflecting wider geopolitical ambitions. Recent headlines spotlight Erdogan's Syria visit plans amidst the changing post-Assad dynamics. Turkish officials' visits to Damascus highlight deepening ties. Despite skepticism on Polymarket about Erdogan's visit due to logistics and politics, Optimism rises as trading volume around $30,000 shows high activity. Odds are around 27% for yes and around 73% for no. Social media mirrors hopes and skepticism, while analysts emphasize Turkey's complex role in post-Assad Syria amid political uncertainties. Erdogan's possible visit could herald a more collaborative relationship, potentially aiding regional stability and refugee repatriation. Yet, challenges remain regarding Turkey's stance on Kurdish groups, and this engagement continues to be closely monitored by international stakeholders. Each of the stories we covered today is ongoing and may change dramatically. For updates and detailed odds, head to polymarket.com. That's all the news that's fit to predict. This is me, Packy McCormick's voice, signing off. May the odds be ever in your favor.